this is a conversation not about performance or persuasion. It's about noticing moments of change, times when something loosened, shifted, or came back into motion. And I'm going to go with my three core questions. The first one, who are you right now? Not necessarily what you do, not necessarily who you're supposed to be, just who you feel yourself to be in this moment.
Yeah, that's a great question. Personally, I'd say I'm a mix of being very structured and organized, and then at the same time, sort of a mess and very disorganized. But certainly that kind of comes into my kind of professional life and then social life as well. On one hand, I'm very process driven. I like frameworks, anything with clarity in terms of, getting a task done, such as if I were to have to, for example, build a table, I like to draw out the diagram of how I'm going to build the table, how I'm going to measure each leg of the table, and then eventually what adhesives I'm going to use to put that table together. And this is all figuratively speaking, but then at the
Right.
same time, I can also be very spontaneous and make a decision to do a 3 hour drive to go for a hike somewhere just on a whim without planning it out. And I think a lot of that is probably related to, my age and kind of the plasticity my personality still sort of feels like it has at certain points.
Mhm.
I'd say in my career, that's probably the case as well. I kind of started out as a physics bachelor in at BC and then figured out I didn't want to do that. And that I knew I was smart enough to do a lot of things, but then I found my way into kind of healthcare, more business oriented kind of consulting. So that in that I kind of was a generalist. I liked thinking out processes and structures, but at the same time, sort of figuring out myself and really trying to figure out kind of what I wanted to do with that. Do I want to go specialize in something, or do I want to stay a generalist and be kind of a jack of all trades, if you will? So I'd say that I'm 27 years old. I'm still kind of evolving as a person, but at the same time, I'm who I always was, which is organized but disorganized at the same time.
It sounds like organized, process driven, quite methodical, but also needing time to look at the bigger picture and maybe get away at a remove in order to do that. I mean, the whole hiking
Yeah,
thing that you talked about. And so I don't think it's so contradictory. I think it actually makes sense because in order to devise a process and even be a generalist, you need to look at the bigger picture. And it's hard to do that if you're always stuck in the minutia of something.
certainly.
So it means that you do need time away or need time to be at a remove. So I'll go to the next question, which is how much of who you are, as you're noticing yourself to be right now, looking back, was shaped by people, places, experiences, especially the human ones, family, love, teachers, whatever comes to mind. And specifically, notice times of change when it's been the human community that's helped shape who you are.
Yeah, I'd say that a huge amount of me is shaped by my early sort of formative years, having a very tight-knit family.
Mhm.
I'm very grateful to have not had any major losses very early in my life. And I've always, when I was born, the day I was born, my family they described kind of the amount of people that was there at the or that were there at the hospital to see me as sort of
Uh-huh.
a student section of sorts. There were a ton of people there, aunts, uncles. I was fortunate enough to know two great grandparents on my mother's side until I was
Wow.
19 years old. Uh,
Great.
so yeah, I always was going to Sunday dinners at my Italian great grandparents' house and sitting
Uh-huh.
around the table, and this was religiously every week, go to church, go for pasta and meatballs at Graham and Pops. And watch football after supper, they called it, but it was at noon pretty much.
I
Uh,
see.
but yeah, I think that a lot of me wants to stay around my parents, stay around my brothers, and I don't have a girlfriend or significant other at that point, but I don't necessarily feel an emptiness about
Mm,
that. Just given I have such a close family. My parents live about a 3 hour drive from Boston, where I reside now, as you know. And uh, speaking to kind of that spontaneous part that I mentioned earlier, I will drop everything some weeks, want to turn my brain off a little bit in the middle of a work week, even, and just drive home, stay with my parents. And I see that as a gift and something I won't be able to do forever. And I think that that kind of family mentality, family orientation that I have definitely translates over to my non-family, more social kind of life and interactions with friends I have. I'm
mm,
always the one to reach out to friends, and obviously we're creeping into in the reaching out sense, that technology part of things. That is something that obviously enables me. Phones and the internet obviously has been great, makes it easy to keep up with people, but I'm always the one that tries to bring friends together, even if we haven't spoken in a while. I think that from a I'd almost say a financial standpoint, but from a just well-being standpoint, if you're not staying connected with people, you're going to have those questions that sneak into your head, like, does this person still care about me? Would they want to talk to me anymore? I haven't spoken to this person since maybe it's high school, and I don't think there's any harm in kind of continuing to reach out and kind of keep your own
mm.
community, not necessarily identifying with one group of people, but anyone you know, anyone you've kind of had a positive interaction with or positive relationship with, making sure that they stay in your lives. And I really credit that to first and foremost my parents, but my whole family in general. And just having that big family growing up, I think really formed me into that type of person.
Wow, I hear tremendous roots in your family and your ability to potentially look at processes outside projection of the fact that you actually see the processes and the connectivity that you've grown up with. I mean, you sound very much not only like someone who is, really highly intelligent and intellectual. Oops, oops, are we there? What happened? There we are. That was Puppy getting onto the laptop. Sorry about that.
Happens.
Um, but really the adhesive also in social contexts is what I hear you describing, which is really cool. So now I'm quite curious about how technology intersects with that. Um, you're younger, you've grown up with technology, but I want to hear that background. But also, where does technology fit in? And what it means to you.
Yeah, I feel as though I'm very fortunate in the sense that I was born in 1998. I remember a world before iPhones. I believe the first
Okay.
iPhone came out when I was in I think third, fourth grade. So I was 8 or 9 years old. And obviously, I'd cite the iPhone kind of coming out because I think everybody sees that as sort of a turning point and kind of thinking about like Moore's Law and kind of the evolution of technology exponentially. That's one of those real first points that it started to shoot up that exponential curve in terms of how interconnected people feel as though they need to be.
Hmm.
Uh, well, with that said, I remember a world where I grew up riding bikes outside with my friends. I built forts in the woods. I played sports outside. I was one of those kids. My younger brothers and I were outside uh, until it was dark, essentially, until our mother called us inside. In a very old-fashioned sense, I got that experience. And then at the same time, as you mentioned, I grew up with technology as well. So we kind of saw the evolution of we watched movies on VHS tapes, then DVDs came out. That was the very cool new thing. And then eventually it was all streaming, and you could buy things right on the Blu-ray player. And now You can watch things on your phone wherever you are. And I think that I started to creep into a little bit of kind of the, I'd say, bad side of the coin in terms of the negative impact technology can have, which sometimes I can be a glass half empty person. So naturally, I digress into that area. But in terms of how I'm shaped by technology, I'd say that I have a natural curiosity to buy and try the newest things and innovations.
Mm.
For example, the glasses I'm wearing, these are like the Meta glasses where it's AI
Oh,
enabled and
wow.
you just say, "Hey, what am I looking at right now?" and then ask it questions and I sort of try to use it as a personal AI companion, if you will, and that
Wait, so
is
how do you do that?
you
How,
just say you just say like the equivalent of "Hey Siri," but for these glasses. I'm avoiding saying it right now so I don't hear
yeah.
voices in my head, but
Oh, and that's what would happen? You would hear voices in your head?
yeah, yeah, it's literally bone conduction. They act as headphones, and
Okay.
I'm trying them out. I wasn't sure, I didn't know if I was a thick glasses type person in the first place, and then also, am I really going to use these things on a daily basis? But I found that I'm using ChatGPT on my phone anyway, so why not kind of streamline it and get it on my
Hmm.
face and ask it whatever I want to ask it. So I find myself
So are your
using
glasses able to see what you're seeing?
when they're recording, yeah,
Okay.
which they aren't right now. I would have
Okay.
had to, of course, inform you of that.
Okay.
But
Very cool.
yeah, but that's just one example of sort of how I like to be on that earlier side of the adoption curves with things like that, especially AI. I'm interested in given the industry and the profession in which I work, which is sort of strategy consulting for healthcare and pharma companies.
Okay.
There's a lot of kind of efficiencies that can come from using AI kind of in your regular workflow and asking it stupid questions, and then also asking it to, as you know, I'm a big structure and framework type person, asking it to help you build one of those. But I also
Hmm.
find that I have to take a step back sometimes and ensure that I'm not totally relying on it, as I think many people have wrote about. I think that when you get into trouble is when you do not add any human element in any of the work. I think a lot of products that I see or accounts I see on social media and things like that are purely AI, not checked by people, and they
Hmm.
essentially spit out nonsense and they are just going for views and revenue, ad revenue, whatever it is. But if you want to actually produce quality work and
Hmm.
you're getting paid to do this, you got to make sure you're at least reading over everything AI is giving you and
Right.
that you're giving it the right inputs. And I'm very interested in sort of that prompt engineering piece. How do I get AI to emulate me in the best way possible? And then how do I, in terms of my own human workflow, optimize what it puts out? How do I change what it says if it kind of goes off the rails a little bit? And how do I make it sound like me? And I think that's my biggest pet peeve with AI, that sometimes it'll just spit out things from the internet and it doesn't sound like you at all. So I'm very experimental in terms of telling AI everything there is to know about myself and making sure it knows my personality, how informal I like to be in some cases, but in some cases formal. And yeah, that's just one example. Obviously, AI is the one a lot of people will jump to, but yeah, I'd say in short, I'm usually on the earlier end of the adoption curve on this, but still trying to make sure I don't lose myself in that process.
So this is so intriguing because you've really assimilated AI on the one hand, but also other technologies, it sounds like, through your life, as you've been growing up. So if you could think about it a little bit, you started with TV and DVDs and then onto smartphones and then almost as a buddy, if you will,
Yeah.
an advisor, which AI is in many respects. But on a minute by minute basis, if you're wearing these glasses, it sounds like as well. So, is it possible to reflect on that a little bit and maybe flesh out what is you versus what is AI, even if you have uploaded or conversed with AI, all the aspects of yourself that you want AI to have. So, in large part, you've actually had to answer to AI who you are. Um,
Right.
so possibly this is a great exercise. Um, what is where did you stop, or where do you stop? Where does it begin? And when it uses what you've given it as formative, right? In the sense of, hey, this is me. Now use me in whatever you're going to give me as advice in this context or that context. See it from my eyes, even though I'm wearing you in my glasses. You know, you've
Yeah.
got my vantage point, but you don't have my brain.
Right.
But you have as much as I've been able to communicate with you.
Yeah.
So where, just if you could flesh it out, where do you think that starts and stops?
I
Um,
think you can compare it to just going from the work day to the work week rather to the weekend. I think
mhm,
as I guess thematically I pointed out before, I need to turn my brain on and off sometimes.
mhm,
I think it's similar to that and how you kind of have to take a step back and realize, okay, I've been on my phone too long today. Just in that sort of sense, I need to take a step back, go for a walk, exercise, and just make sure that my brain is fresh. Because I don't know, personally, when I don't exercise, I feel like I'm going crazy. If I'm sedentary for a few days, it doesn't go well for me, but that's another
mhm,
story.
mhm.
Um, yeah, but I think the AI example, as many have written about, is a really good one because that's something that really can begin to emulate human behavior, and a lot of people are scared of that. I'm less scared of that than I am of letting myself become too lazy, I guess, for lack of a better term. And uh, I have to take what AI is giving me more as suggestions and more of a sounding board, essentially, is the way I think about it for original thoughts that I have myself. And it does sort of creep me out a little bit how personable AI seems to become, especially when you're trying to prompt it. You're saying, you are my assistant, you are an
Right,
expert in whatever it may be. You're an expert in oncology because I need to ask it an oncology question, whatever it may be.
right.
It still knows who you are just based on what you've told it and the questions you've asked it. So
Yeah.
you do need to take time to sort of realize where AI is even overdoing it and just parse out, okay, this is a good suggestion it gave me, and then okay, it's being too agreeable. I
Uh-huh.
specifically prompt my chat GPT uh, to essentially try to argue with me as much as it's possible because I found that it's too friendly. I found
Mhm.
that it suggests that too many of my stupid ideas are good ones.
Right.
And I think that I personally do a fine job of making sure I'm not losing myself and losing the quality of work I do during my day job in all of this. But I do think that it definitely has a downside, especially you see things like AI actors. I saw there was an AI actor that got signed
Yeah.
to some big contract. I barely know what that means.
Yeah.
And I should say I'm no expert. I have no formal training in AI. This is all purely empirical. But yeah, I think that when some of the content that you're consuming just for leisure starts to become non-human, I think over time, and I guess this is sort of the idea of what you're doing, people may become less human and more influenced by these ideas and these AI actors, and then so on for kind of human ideas that are really not human ideas. It's just regurgitations of and iterations on what might have been an initial prompt from
Well, here's an idea that I had recently when I was getting these books out that I just recently did with editing help from AI. And I was trying to figure out how to do the covers, and I got the the spine wrong because it was such a skinny spine.
Yeah.
So the lettering is not written on the spine. It's a little bit off. And I was looking at that idea of imperfection. So if you order that book on Amazon that I wrote, the the lettering will be just a little off. And I was like, well, this is such a great keepsake because in my mind, I think of AI and technology as helping humanity to perfect something,
Mhm.
to make it better in the sense of more perfect, not less perfect. And so the idea of something being imperfect like that spine, I think it's on the first of that trilogy, the longevity series, the top 10 anti-aging foods. Um, I would say, what about that? Is that very human? Because it was human error. It was human error. I just could not get it right.
Right.
But isn't there something to human error being coveted? I was like, that's me, because like you, I can be very hyper organized, but I can also have my moments of complete disorganization. And I was like, but what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
What? Because that says something about me. So, um, in that sense, do you see that as possibly being a way to retain your humanity in it? And I understand the breaks from it.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I was just going to ask you something like that when you brought up kind of that idea of what's the goal of AI? Is it trying to help us perfect things, perfect everything we do? And then do we want that human error? Isn't that some of the beauty in humanity? And I think those are maybe terms that sound eloquent, but I think there's some truth to that in the sense that in terms of how we kind of put pressure on ourselves. If we have AI
mhm,
and we know we have AI to help us, what does that mean from a mental health standpoint as a society? Are we going to push for everything to have to be perfect? If I were to have a client at work and they know we're using AI, maybe it's 10 years from now,
mhm,
do they expect zero typos in anything I ever send them? That sort of thing. Do they expect it to be just that perfect, or do they want to have something that they can recognize has mistakes and then iterate on it and
mhm,
open up more discussion and really get to the bottom of why we might want to tweak wording in a certain, I'm speaking in terms of like PowerPoint decks or whatever you kind of send over to someone in more of a professional context. But do we have too much pressure on us with tools like AI? Will it get to a point where we're pressured to get everything right the first time? And I think I'm a bit of a perfectionist in the sense that I can be very anxious. I can put a lot of pressure on myself to, whether
mhm,
it's a work situation or a social setting, be perfect, present myself as perfect. But I don't think humans are as relatable or as easy to get on with if they aren't, or if they come off as these clean, kind of
mhm.
shiny toy soldier types where they're just very put together, no kind of slang terms used, anything like that. I think, yeah, I think you have a very good point there that there's a little bit of beauty in the imperfection that we
Well,
have just as people.
I was asking you specifically because as you were defining yourself as kind of this connective core, I called it adhesive, but it's because of your roots, your belonging to family, I mean, even great grandparents, I think you said, right,
Yeah.
until you were 19, which is very unusual. I don't know many people that were in that position, and I think blessed to be in that position, as you said. So coming from that, which so you would know a lot about how to connect, and your interpersonal skills are through the roof, really, because of that background. Um, well, how does connectivity happen? Does it happen in a rigid form, or is it something much more fluid and moving? As opposed to the way I think AI, ChatGPT, I think it's attempting that as well. 'Cause, it's
Absolutely.
right.
But then
So if you,
there's those interactions you have passing by someone in an aisle at a store, like, oh, I'm sorry. Oh no, that's okay. That's that's a friendly thing that happens. You can't
Right.
necessarily, you don't prompt it and say, "Oh, hello, I am very sorry about that." You say, "Whoops, I'm sorry," and
Yeah.
the little
Yeah.
smile you give. I think things like the automation of cars, they've had discussions about, well, if for someone crossing the road, they don't make eye contact with the person, how do they know the car is going to stop for them? I think
Mhm.
those human interactions, there are just those soft things that you just can't replicate with things like AI, at least
Mhm.
not yet. And I think that's what people are becoming scared of. When do you know? When do you know when it's kind of gone too far? A movie I saw recently was Ex Machina, and it was
Yeah.
about
Oh, I
this.
saw that a long while ago. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Great movie.
I thought it was provocative because at
Yeah.
the end of the movie, I think it was Ava, the
Hmm.
AI kind of robot goes into society, and you weren't going to know that you would have no way of knowing that she was an AI essentially. And this, I think,
Right.
took place in the future, but I think that's kind of the flip side that I'm not so scared about yet because I would hope that that's way beyond my time here. But those are kind of the questions it brings up, at least in my head. When are we going to know it's gone too far, and will it obviously have been too late at that point that we realize?
Right. Right. So, and the other part is how much is AI in fact learning, not just about you, but from you to be more like the way you would like it to be. Because it's not only going to be that way with you, but with other people too. So you're
Yeah,
actually training AI for everyone in a sense. And you have
absolutely.
a terrific background to train it in being more human.
Yeah, and you've got to think that there's certain profiles they make up of people based on what they see on your social media. I very much believe our phones are listening to us. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a huge conspiracy theory kind of person, but I believe that all of these large tech companies are profiling us. They just see us as essentially units, and some are grouped into maybe a little better to train off of. I think that's an interesting idea that I hadn't necessarily thought of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, here we are going into the future, and I thank you. I think this is really very informative for to get that view from someone who is younger, I mean, under 30, and you've actually developed alongside technology.
Yeah.
So I guess in a way, I'm not surprised that you're wearing the Meta glasses for this
Oh
interview.
yeah. I'm just crazy like that. I just am very interested in trying anything that's new. That's just me. But yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And actually, one of the things that I did get from this was that you're in Boston because I'm archiving these geographically.
Yep.
So I'm curious how the interviews will vary
Yeah.
from
No,
place to
I'm
place as well.
definitely interested to be continuing in your little experiment here. And I think it's
Yeah. You
really
know,
interesting idea. It helps me reflect, I'm sure. I'll be thinking about this all night now. So I appreciate the conversation.
I'm gonna do some editing and then upload it. But I'm actually also thinking that people may want to come back. You skip a few years and then you come back and you're in a different moment, and you may have a very different view of who you are in that moment.
I'd be
So,
definitely game to do that. That
all
sounds like
right,
a very kind of
cool.
reflection piece for me to take on.
Thank you so much. I really
Thank you.
appreciated this time.